Welcome to Tombstone Blues, written by Michael Parnall and Robert Clark. We begin this story at the motel The Quaint Lugan in the Texas desert in the middle of nowhere. Skipp Rockefeller, a lone 55-year-old man, leans back in his chair with his feet up on the counter of the small, cluttered motel lobby. His filthy hygiene is complemented by the grease-covered overalls and boots he is dressed in. A constant smacking noise comes from Skipp as he plays with the unfitting dentures in his mouth. The screen door of the office swings open, and a tall, thin, unknown gender hooker enters. Her large, permed hair grazes the top of the doorframe when she appears. She wears a gold spandex dress and ugly pink high-heeled shoes. Deep gargling in her lungs can be heard when she coughs and hacks. Skipp talks to her as she enters.
You got here faster than a scared rat fucks.
I don't want to keep the love of my life waiting.
Skipp drops his feet to the floor and points at the office door.
I'll lock up here and meet you in our room.
I have something new you might like.
She lightly pats a duffel bag swung over her shoulder as she turns to leave the office. Skipp giggles to himself while he watches her go. He makes his way to the door and flips the sign to the closed side. Turning off the office lights, leaves the room in darkness as he shuts and locks the door. The door opens while Skipp enters the run-down motel room. The once yellow, dirty walls have strange artwork hanging on them. The dilapidated furniture sits on the disgusting brown-stained rug. On the bed, the hooker looks up to Skipp when he walks in.
Get ready for your surprise.
Skipp walks over to the bed and sits beside her.
Surprise? You know I don't like surprises. I hate surprises. I'm a man that likes what I like.
You will like this one. It's from Japan.
She unzips the duffel bag on her lap while Skipp watches. The hooker pulls a long metal rod, clamp, and vibrator out of the bag. She holds them up for Skipp to look at closely.
Oh, wow.
Okay, get naked and lay on the bed. I need to get this ready.
She hears Skipp taking off his clothes behind her while she assembles the strange sexual device on the table beside the bed. Plugging in a bread-sized box with dials on the front, she attaches long wires to the metal rods. Her coughing and hacking continue endlessly. Rods in hand, the hooker turns back to a now naked Skipp lying under a cover. She smiles while pulling back the sheet around his groin. The room is dimly lit, adding to the seedy atmosphere. The hooker is operating a strange piece of equipment on Skipp's groin area. Skipp's face contorts into various pleasurable expressions.
Oh, hey there.
It's only cold for a minute.
Would you take it easy on my fruit basket?
The hooker replaces the sheet over Skipp and connects the cables coming from his groin to the front of a plug-in box on the nightstand. She pauses for a minute while she has a coughing fit.
Are you okay?
She finishes her convulsing and looks up at Skipp, smiling.
Sure, baby. Are you ready?
Skipp smiles at her and then retreats his head onto his pillow, looking up at the ceiling.
Let's do this thing.
The hooker flips on the electric box, creating a humming sound. Her nicotine-stained fingers turn the dial on the box up to 1/3 of the way, causing the electric buzzing sound to increase. Skipp's face makes a surprised and sexually satisfied expression.
Ooh, yeah, that's it.
The hooker starts to cough and retch uncontrollably, dropping to one knee. Her arm grazes the dial, cranking it to full power. Skipp's mouth and eyes open wide as he begins to smoke from the electrocution. The lights in the room turn on and off from the power surge, accompanied by a zapping, sizzling sound coming from Skipp. The hooker's hacking somewhat subsides, causing her to look up at his shaking, smoldering body. The lights finally cut out, leaving the room in darkness. The only light comes from the street lamps shining in through the windows. The hooker, now sporadically coughing, rushes to Skipp's fried body on the bed.
My sweetheart chiclets.
The hooker feels his neck in the darkness to see if he has a pulse.
Damn it, he's dead.
Now crying, she quickly grabs a handkerchief and wipes her fingerprints off the dial of the machine. She grabs Skipp's dead hand and places it on the dial. She stands looking down at the still smoking body. The hooker leaves backward out the door, blowing kisses to him. His life ended like it started, very strange. Later on that week. A picture ID swings as it hangs from the rearview mirror with the name Stanley Peuter boldly printed at the bottom. The slightly overweight man driving the car is the same person in the picture identification. Stan reaches over to the passenger seat to grab an open paper map. Pulling it onto the steering wheel, he looks at it as he drives. Once he locates his position on the map, he looks back to the road, noticing that he has drifted into the oncoming lane. He swerves back to his side of the road. Once again, he starts to read the map, tracing his route with his index finger. A loud honk of a whiny horn causes him to quickly look back to the road. Stanley cranks the steering wheel to the right, just missing an old-style scooter traveling toward him. Correcting the fishtailing car makes him lose grip on the map, and it gets sucked out the driver's window.
Damn it.
He pulls the car to the side of the road and stops. Opening the car door proves difficult as the highway now has many vehicles speeding by him both ways. Stanley exits the car and retreats behind it to the shoulder of the road. He sees the map on the other side of the road, flapping in the wind from the now busy highway. Stan looks back and forth to try and time a safe crossing. An SUV drives by with a young girl in the passenger seat giving him the finger.
Real nice.
Shaking his head, he looks back to the traffic. His first few attempts at crossing fail, but he eventually has a chance to run over in time. He grabs the map as it almost flies away.
I gotcha.
Trying to cross back over the road, the map is ripped from his hand by a truck speeding by. The look on his face is a defeated grimace.
Cocksucker.
Bending over with his hands on his knees, he shakes his bowed head. Stanley sits back in the driver's seat of the car, closing the door. Starting the car, he looks to the passenger seat to see a piece of paper with an address on it.
At least I have this.
He puts the car in gear while checking his mirrors. The road is once again desolate with no traffic in sight, causing him to shake his head.
That was so strange.
He puts the car into drive and resumes his trip. Meanwhile, somewhere down south, in a dilapidated farmhouse, Skipp Rockefeller's dead body lays on a dining room table with quarters over his eyes. His body is surrounded by all kinds of different foods, with some of the food on top of his corpse. A loud bang of a door opening gives way to a crazy man entering the room. He runs around Skipp's body, stuffing food into his mouth. Chanting some strange, undecipherable words, he continues to cram all different types of food into his face. The ravenous behavior of the crazed man increases as he eats while screaming. Returning to Stanley in his car, he is driving down the small-town main road and he stops in front of a large brown building. Stan climbs out of the now-parked car, locking the door as he shuts it. He holds up the addressed piece of paper to compare it to the address on the building. Now satisfied, Stan makes his way to the entrance of the lawyer's office. The door opens, ringing a bell attached to the door frame. Stanley surveys the office and accidentally slams the door insanely loud behind him. The loud bang causes the three secretaries sitting in the office to look up at him in silence. Raising his hand, he smiles at them.
Sorry about that.
The secretaries pause for a minute and then return to working on their computers. Stan walks over to the closest desk as the brunette secretary sitting there looks up to him.
Yeah. Hello. I am here to see Lisa Bennette.
The brunette secretary smiles at him and points to the empty waiting chair area.
Please take a seat. She will be right with you.
Stanley smiles as he shuffles back toward the waiting area chairs. Just as he sits, the door behind the brunette secretary's desk opens. An incredibly beautiful blonde woman appears in the doorframe looking to the waiting area.
Mr. Peuter?
Stan stands back up into a bow.
My lady.
She turns and walks back into her office as he follows. Meanwhile, somewhere in a field, we now join an oddly dressed group of people at Skipp's funeral. They all stand in line to pay respects to the casket, with Skipp Rockefeller's body inside. 3 hillbilly women crying are the first in line of the group. One of the women sneezes as she cries, and she shoots a long string of snot into the casket. She breaks the long stream of mucus with the handkerchief in her hand. The woman next to her guides her hand to drop a pickle into the casket. The line moves on, giving way to a blond, dirty hillbilly with dentures that don't fit. He struggles to talk because of the odd-shaped mouth gear and has minor blood in the corners of his mouth.
Thanks, Uncle Skipp. Thanks for leaving me the family chompers. I only had to pull out 3 teeth for them to fit. We're gonna miss you. That's for true.
As he walks out of sight, a filthy man walks up, with tear tracks running down his face. The strap of the eye patch he wears holds down half of his straight-cut bangs tight to his head. He chews a large wad of tobacco and spits between talking to his dead uncle.
No, my lucky chicklets. He's the one and only.
His actions become more animated, screaming at the sky as he wails,
A Santa monk man, the knees of all the bees, the juicy niblets of the cob, the salt of the earth, the best uncle anyone could have, the one and only.
A random voice comes from the people behind him at the funeral.
Yeah, we got it. You love him. Can we move on?
The eye patch hillbilly stops his tirade and looks back at the group.
Hey, you got your turn. Don't be rushing me now.
You are stupid.
The eye patch hillbilly shakes his head as he turns back to the coffin. He wipes the long string of brown saliva from his bottom lip before he talks.
Those fucking idiots. Anyway, we love you, Uncle Skipp. We'll miss you having you around. You're a great uncle and a great father.
He pats the stomach of the corpse while spitting a wad of tobacco juice on the back of his hand. Leaning in, he whispers quietly.
I will look after the quaint Lugan for you real good like. Don't you worry, real good like. I'll be good.
Standing back up, he turns to the group behind him and closes the casket lid.
Back to the house with you. Get along, come on.
We now rejoin Lisa and Stanley back in her office. Lisa points to a chair and closes the door behind Stan as he enters.
Please sit.
Stanley sits as Lisa walks around her wooden desk to her seat. She looks over a file folder on her desk, then realizes it is not Stanley's file. Stanley sits uncomfortably, moving around in his chair. Lisa turns to look at the files on the desk behind her. When she turns, Stanley starts to cough and fails to raise his hand to his mouth in time to stop projecting phlegm into the air. A marble-sized ball of mucus flies into the air, landing into Lisa's ample cleavage, without her even noticing. When she turns back to face Stanley, he can see the glob of phlegm that landed on the edge of her right breast. A wide-eyed Stanley stares straight at the disgusting projectile on her chest. Stanley's wide-open eyes look nervous while sweat runs down his brow.
Mr. Peuter?
Stan snaps to attention and awkwardly starts to look sporadically around the room.
Sorry. So sorry.
She smiles, looking back to his file, and begins to read.
So, it says here that you are the surviving relative and to inherit a motel from your deceased uncle, Skipp Rockefeller?
Yes. That is why I'm here.
Isn't the funeral today? Why aren't you there?
Well, I lost my map. I don't know where I am going down here.
So, you are new to the area?
Yeah, I thought this would be a good change. It is not every day you get a chance at a job that makes you move to a different state.
She turns the file to face Stanley and points to it.
Okay, well, if you sign here...
Stanley pulls a pen from his front pocket and starts to sign where she points.
I've always had a dream of owning and running my own place.
I can get this processed properly and fax this to the state to make it official.
Stanley finishes signing, sitting back in his chair. She turns the file back to herself, standing out of her seat. He follows suit and stands.
I will bring the final papers to you at the motel later on today.
Okay. Can you tell me how to get there?
They both walk out to the common area of the lawyer's office.
Just drive down the main road the way you came into town. You pass it about 10 miles down the road. The next town over called Tombstone Blues. The quaint Lugan Motel is the name, and there should be someone from the small staff to help you.
He looks back at her as he opens the door to leave.
Thanks for everything.
He turns, walking out the door. Stanley drives down the highway, his eyes peeled for the motel. He spots the sign on the side of the road with the neon vacancy light flashing on and off. Pulling into the small lot, Stanley parks in front of the office sign of the beaten-up building. Climbing out of the car, he looks over the dirty, aged motel. The screen door of the motel office opens and Stanley enters the extremely messy lobby. Thank you for listening to this episode of Tombstone Blues. Please join us in episode 2 and see how Stanley likes his new inherited motel. Till next time, ta-ta for now.